All right, sorry for that, man. Sorry for the disturbance. Okay, so like as I was saying, bribe, we are still talking in terms of the relativity of ethics. Some people, they do accept bribe. They don't consider it to be something unethical, right? Whereas in some areas, it's highly unethical. I was reading about something that was talking about bribe. They made mention of a country like Russia. You see, you give bribe. Even I can talk about this West African country, West Africa, like Nigeria. If you want your things to move, you must give bribe. You must give it. You call it a public relation. You see, yeah, public relation. Some call it gratification because you don't expect somebody to assist you without you motivating that person. You must put something in a brand envelope and say, "Hey, let me process this." And if you don't give, nothing will work for you. That is why you see most of them, they are coming here. They've corrupted these people in home affairs and they are getting through, you know, because that is the system. They are coming from that system. And as people here, they were not used to it. Now they discover that, hey, man, apart from your salary, you can get something else, you know. Then they became corrupt, something of that. But here is highly unethical, but there it's allowed. You must give. So that is what we are talking about. So ethical behavior is a behavior which display an awareness of and practice of what is right and wrong, what is wrong. So the code of conduct states what behavior is unethical. So the ethics of the people, right, involved in a project determine what behavior is acceptable. So in a project environment, you need to clearly define the kind of behavior that are acceptable, right? Yes, ask your question. Yeah, yeah, they got. Yeah, we're gonna discuss about it. Very important, right? Things that can be included in the code of conduct in a project environment. Yeah, code of conduct is a separate document, right? It can be embedded MOU if you are dealing with an organization or if you are outsourcing whatever component of the project that you are outsourcing. It can be incorporated. Right. Okay. So in the exam, you might be asked to distinguish the relationship or to write a short note, although we don't say short note here, briefly describe the relationship between ethics and code of conduct. But this other area is very, very important. Very, very important for your knowledge sake. Right? It comes out in the exam. Things which needs to be included in the code of conduct of a project. Right. One, personal responsibility. What you as a team member in the project needs to fulfill, the obligations that you need to fulfill, your responsibility needs to be defined in the code of conduct in a project environment or the code of conduct of a project. Right? You must listen now, right? Um, what is his name? Marcus. Yeah, you must listen to this now. So your personal responsibilities needs to be defined, right? Clearly stating what is expected of you as a team member in the project. That is one. Secondly, compliance with the law. You must make sure that this law we are talking about now might not necessarily be restricted to the laws within the project environment, laws in the society. Right? Because you see, the whatever laws that you need to comply with within a project environment must be derived from the constitution, from the law of the country or of the particular area. So you having a operating within that periphery of project environment, your laws must not infringe with the law of the state. Right. So you need to comply with the law. For example, if you employ someone as a driver in a project environment, right, that person must have a driver's license. Do you understand what I mean? Right? That is the law that is applicable in the area. You cannot expect that driver not to have a license or not to obey the traffic rule. So those laws are already there, law of the state that the person needs to comply with. Does it make sense to you? You need to compliance of the no member of the team will be allowed to break the law, right? Relation with the publics, right? Direct to how project team was to interact with it. There are certain projects, perhaps, that are secretive in nature, that are security in nature, security concern in nature, that are, you remember we got words like this, classified and unclassified document, right? So if it is something that you don't, wouldn't allow people, the public to know about, right? Whenever someone is coming in, you will not allow every team member to speak to any person or to speak perhaps to the press, right? Because you wouldn't allow them to divulge information pertaining to that project for security reasons. So if you are involved in such a project as a project manager, you need to come up with a code of conduct that speaks to that. Does it make sense to you? That is what we are saying here. Acceptance of gift, reward, hospitality. This is where we talk about bribe. You know, bribe. You must stay there, right? To what extent will you allow somebody to accept a gift? And if there is any need, or if there is a room for you to allow people to accept gifts, you can even state there to what amount or how the gift must be dealt with. Right. For example, in certain organizations, they do allow people to take gift to a certain amount and you must declare it. Do you understand what I mean? So you need to state that in your code of conduct. Reward and hospital and discount. So clarify under what circumstance if any person or member will be allowed to accept gift or any other gratuities from gratification. So that is what we are talking about as far as that context is concerned. So all these things needs to be made known in the project. Right. Acceptance of greed, yes. Sorry. Then avoiding conflict of interest. What is conflict of interest? Sometimes they do say this type of, uh, they, yeah, this one sometimes it comes out in the exam. They will ask you to explain what is a conflict of interest. Under what circumstance can one be charged for being or constituting a conflict of interest in a project environment? If you are doing the same thing outside to help yourself, right, which is related to, which more or less is part of your responsibility at your working place, can constitute a conflict of interest. Right. Okay. We said avoiding conflict of interest. This session deal with what a team member should do if a conflict of interest arose. A conflict of interest between individual personal interest and his or her duty. So if there is anything that you are doing outside your job environment, outside your duty, that starts to compromise, right? You from fulfilling your obligations at your working place or in a project environment, it can be regarded as a conflict of interest, which is not allowed. So when you are drafting or formulating code that needs to be included in the code of conduct in a project environment, all these things must be clearly defined, articulately stated, so that one can be able to know the do's and don'ts, what needs to be done and what don't need to be done by the team member. Right. What is the time now? Huh? The period is over. Okay, guys, let's finish it. Don't worry. Now, let's finish this stuff. It's very important. Then, conduct in money matter. So, if you are in a project environment, perhaps you are in a position of keeping money, right? There will to be specified in the code of conduct how you need to deal with that money. Don't use the money for your personal use, for your personal endorsement. That is what we are talking about. This section clearly provides for who is allowed to deal with money and how they should protect everyone from accusation of the appropriation of fund, right? Misappropriation of fund, right? Uh, then appropriation of fund is the, I'm trying to conceptualize it, what it means. Appropriation of fund is the action of taking something, especially when it is not yours to take. When you steal it, right? Stealing project money or money that have been given to you to safeguard, and you are using it for your own personal gain, for your own indulgence, is tantamount to appropriation of fund. Then use of ethical properties. If there are certain properties that, for example, the office properties and whatever services in the office property must be used in a wise way. Use of ethical properties state how official property and services may be used by a team member. Then the work environment needs to be maintained. So these are the things that needs to be included in the code of conduct in the project environment. Right. Okay, guys, we are going to stop here. Next time, let's see where we're gonna start. Processes to guys, this one is a very important aspect as well. Processes, I'm not going to teach this one now, right? I know the period is over. This one always come out in the exam. It can even come out in a year more than 2 or 3 times. Processes to be followed when a code of conduct is breached. If somebody breach a code of conduct or is in default, right, discipline, yeah, we're gonna talk about that. There are steps that needs to be followed, hearing, warning, and all those type of stuff. So it's very interesting. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk about this tomorrow, right? Yeah. Yeah, you correct? Yeah. Who? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's because of the internet here is not so, it's not so strong.